Hey everybody, this is Dustin Puryear, founder of Giant Rocketship, um, where we turbocharge MSPs by automating help desk and Autotask. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this puppy off. I actually did a one-on-one with somebody the other day, and they had some questions about how do you have Autotask do outbound webhooks to trigger Zapier or maybe a flow in Azure. And there's good news and there's bad news. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of scenarios of how to make it work. So again, Dustin Puryear, founder of Giant Rocketship. And so what we are going to do is kind of go through some limitations and issues you're going to have. Now, if you want to do an outbound webhook, absolutely you can do it. Unfortunately, you have to do it through the API. They don't have just an easy way to do a full webhook that's outbound from Autotask other than creating it using the API. I'm going to show you how you can do a very limited outbound webhook. And then I'm going to show you the solution that lets you use a no-code platform to do any type of webhook without using the API. It does require a little bit of a middleman, a little bit of glue logic, but I'm going to show you how it works. And so the first thing is if you want to do a very limited type of webhook and it's just a change type notification, what you can do is what is called a ticket call out in Autotask. So we're going to go to admin and then we're going to go to extensions and integrations and then other extensions and tools and webhooks. Oh, nope, extension call out. So the way that this works, and we have one, this is our test tenant that we use for Rocketship. But the way that it works in an extension callout, it is a webhook, but it's more of a notification of change. It's really an outbound, hey, you should take a look at this ticket. And so, I mean, the good news is if you know how to use like a no-code platform, this really is enough to trigger you do an API call from that no-code, whether it's Zapier or something else, to look at the ticket because you know it's been changed. And the way it works is just say this is Zapier, or it could be Azure Flow or whatever. And let's just say it's Azure whatever.com, and then it's got some crazy hook address. These fields are no longer relevant. They're still there, but they're not really used. And you can do a get or a post here. And what it's going to do, it's going to send the ID. Now, to actually trigger this, you have to connect it to a workflow. And so, excuse me. So let's go ahead and save this. I want you to be able to see what it looks like. And then we're going to go to our workflows. And I think have a test one already. Here we go. So in your first approach, what you would do is you would create a workflow that triggers based on some change, maybe a ticket creation or edit or something. And then it's going to call this extension call out and see how you can see it right there. And then when it does it, it's going to send the ID of the ticket that has been modified. When this happens, you can have your Zapier connect back to Autotask, pull up ticket entities, and then do a search just for that one ticket entity. And then you know some changes happened. Whatever this workflow is that drove that, you would say, okay, this is a new user hook. And then if this called that Zapier, then you know for a fact you have a ticket for a new user. Just get the ticket data using the API from Zapier to Autotask, grab it, and then do something with it. The problem is that does require another call into Autotask, and you might not want that. But that is the first way you're going to want to do a webhook. Now, you may have noticed that there is, and every once in a while, check to see if there's any questions. Oh, goodness, I'm not screen sharing. Let's do it again. All right, so I'm going to start this over. I did not screen share. So the question that I had was, how do you do outbound webhooks? And in Autotask, that is somewhat limited. because you can using the admin interface in Autotask do a type of webhook called a ticket call out. The problem with the call out is that it only really passes you the ID of the ticket. So it will require that whatever you're connecting to does an API hit against Autotask. And when it does that, then you can pull any additional information out of the ticket that you want to act on. So again, I'm going to walk through this. And so to set up this first approach, which is what they call a call out in Autotask, is we're going to go to admin, extensions and integrations, and then other extensions and tools. And then we're going to go to extension callouts. I'm going to show you this in a second, but we're going to go to our extension callout. And notice I've created this here. It could be Azure, Zapier. I just put whatever, Azure, Zapier, whatever endpoint. And notice I put the URL. And then again, what's going to happen? I can do a get or a post. It depends on what the receiver wants. Usually, if it's simple, you can just send it. Use a get. And a get, if you're not sure, this is the get, right? It's got like variable equals value, and a post embeds it in the body of the HTTP call. So, anyways, when you do this, this doesn't trigger on its own. You have to connect this to a workflow. So you might have 5 call outs. You might have new user tickets, term user tickets, tickets labeled high priority, and all these have different call outs to Zapier, to Azure, to Make, whatever. And then you have to create a workflow for each of these, which is kind of logical, that actually triggers it. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And so again, we've created the webhook definition. And now we're going to create the workflow that triggers that call out. And so it could be based on a creation of a ticket, edit, note, time entry, whatever you want it to be. And you just go down here and you say, look, this is going to be the call out. Whenever this workflow fires, in addition to whatever else it does, I also want it to execute on this call out. And I have a question. Let's see. Okay, good. So somebody's actually going to be using this. All right, well, good. So this is going to be easy for you. So if you're using Roost, which is a very cool tool, and so actually we are actually talking to them about doing an integration from Roost, so that from Roost you can automate your escalations, assignments, scheduling, everything like that. If you have an interest in that integration between Roost and Rocketship, let me know. We're getting votes to see how many people wanted to see where we put it on the feature list. Anyways, going back, so this is going to do that extension call out, and boom. So like if you're in Roost or Azure or Make or Zapier, again, I keep emphasizing this. If you need more data than just the ID of the ticket, you need that endpoint to do an API call back into Autotask to pull the ticket information so you can act on it. That said, a lot of times you really just need the ID. For example, if you're using a no-code platform like Roost or something else, and you wanted to trigger like one of our escalation rules or a scheduling rule or something different, maybe an email that goes out, then you may just want to use the ID because you can use that to create a URL to get to the ticket, that kind of stuff. But if you want more data, you need to pull it from the Autotask API. So that's the limitation, but it's very easy to set this up. But it does have that limitation of you have to pull the API for more data. I'm going to show you the next thing you can do, which is this isn't going to work, but I'm going to show you why. If you go to Webhooks, notice there's no way to create a webhook. And actually, it's a little complicated. And so to create a full webhook in Autotask, it's API driven, and it's actually a pretty complicated mechanism that they have in place. You really have to subscribe to every single field, every potential change. And so really when you do a webhook configuration in Autotask, like programmatically, it's a huge subscription list to changes. Not very easy to do. So in terms of, as a developer, it makes total sense. In terms of you doing it by hand, it would be a lot of work. So maybe they'll change that in the future. So you can't do it here. So, okay, what do? How do you get data out of Autotask into a third-party system without having to do extra API calls and any kind of weirdness. Well, I'm going to show you a trick, right? So it is true that Autotask cannot do a native webhook, outbound webhook, a full webhook with all the data unless you use the API. But what it can do is send out an email automatically. And let's see what that looks like. And so what you want to do, here's the trick here. You're going to create a notification template. And I'm going to go through this whole scenario. You're going to see it. So I'm going to create a notification template. You have to excuse my allergies are going crazy these days. Email hook template. I just created this. And look, it's going to be obvious what's happening here. Put the ticket ID and the ticket number in here. And then this is HTML, really. You're not going to use that for any kind of development stuff, but let's go ahead and put it in there. But notice I'm just starting to fill out the fields that I want to be able to pull into a third-party system. And I mean, honestly, you could just grab them all, just so long as you name them so you can easily pull them out. And there's a ton. I mean, there's so many fields you can put into this. Okay, so now we know, all right, we can put this data into an email notification template. So then what do we do with this? Well, if we go back to that workflow we had, and I am pretty sure this is the most undocumented way of doing this. It works every time. And it's actually really cool when you see how it works. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to go back to this email hook test, and notice that I didn't save it, so it doesn't have the call out. I'm going to go into my no-code platform, and again, I'm going to keep repeating. It can be whatever. It can be a flow. It can be, let's see, it can be Zapier. Well, what we wanted to do here, and I'm just using make.com. I like make just because I've been using it forever. I'm familiar with Flow and everything else. I just find it less cumbersome than a Zapier, which I don't like the model for doing branching. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a hook here. This webhooks, look at this. I'm going to do a mail hook. So I'm sure you're figuring this out real quick what we're going to do. We're going to use this address, and we're going to send a notification to it. And the notification is going to be our data. So every time this workflow triggers, it's going to send data to this mail hook, whatever platform you're using. And so that's the trick, and I'm going to show you how that looks. So let's go ahead and add a note. Remember in that workflow, let's see if I have any questions. I tend to go a little too fast sometimes. I get in trouble for it. We're going to do a test. And I set that workflow to trigger on creation, edit, or a note creation. And just so you know, and we have to deal with this too in normal webhooks, it can take several seconds for this to fire. And this is impactful to any third party, including Rocketship, because when you make a change, we might not see that change for several seconds. Might not think it's a big deal, but a lot of tools that hook into Autotask are more dashboardy reporting stuff. But we're interactive. We're right in the middle of your operations and production because we're handling where tickets go and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, if you make a change here out from under us without letting us know, it might take us 5-10 seconds to see that you made that change. Anyways, just to kind of vocalizing a little bit of annoyance. All right, so notice it sent this out. And so I don't know if I ever actually started to run this, so let's do it again. So this email hook, it's a mail hook, is going to get that data. And then I'm going to create a couple of regexes for you just so you can see how you pull data out of this thing, how you direct it wherever you want it to go. So let's see here. Taking a couple of seconds. Yes. Look, it got data, right? So ask yourself, what is the difference between this mail hook and a webhook? Nothing. There's literally no difference whatsoever. I do have to parse out the data, but that's okay, right? So, and if I was smart, I could actually, in my notification template, code it as like a JSON body, and then I could just parse it out as JSON. But we're kind of moving fast here. I'm just going to do a regex. And so look, we have data here. And in the subject line, we have our ticket ID and our ticket number. And so let's just parse that just so you can see what it would look like. And let's see here. So this is going to be our ticket ID, right? And we can test this real quick. Can we test this? And again, I want you to just see how powerful and how quick it is to get data out of Autotask if you know the tricks. All right, so look, I didn't parse it right. Let's see here. That's almost definitely not right. See again. Let's see if I can do regex. I just did this the other day. It's not parsing it. Okay, so let's do this, and then T. It's gonna be T. It might just want me to do the full thing. And so let's see if Dustin can get his stuff right. I'm struggling with my little regex here, but you see what we're doing here, right? So you're able to pull the data out. And so the trick here is like, what do you want to do with this data? Let's see if I have any new questions. Okay, what do we do from here? Okay, great. So now we have a middle layer. I call this glue code that can take this data, and if you want to, you can create an email out of it, or you can send it to another webhook. Like, right, so if you have Zapier or I'm using Make or whatever, you can route it all over the place. So this is how you solve the problem of creating webhooks out of Autotask. And so let's just imagine I wanted, for one thing, I wanted this to go to my Azure webhook. Azure hooks, I'm making that up. And I'm going to, I want to send some data to it. And so just whatever, I'm going to send my, my text data to it. Normally you would parse that out into a format that was easier on the webhook that you're sending it to. But boom, look, now I just sent this to Azure webhook for new user. Done. Right. Oh, also, I'm in Zapier or Make or whatever, and I want to send this to mail. And actually, let's say I want to send it to WordPress some way, like add it to a thing. If you have the connection to that, you can add it to a WordPress table somewheres, or we use Mailgun, by the way. Big fan of it. And so maybe you want to send an email as well to your admin, or maybe a point of contact for that ticket. And so then it hits the webhook and it sends out an email, it does whatever. But all this is driven from a little bit of trickery we did here, which is a workflow driven email that goes to a mail hook that we convert into whatever we want it to be. Very powerful. If you want to take a look at make.com, let me know. I can give you some pointers for it. They have a really good free tier. I feel like it's better than Zapier's free tier, if they even still have it. But I just prefer the branching. It's much more visual and obvious what you're doing with the branching inside of Make, or even a Flow. I find it's easier than Zapier, because Zapier, I'm not trying to hate too much on it, but if you get too complicated with Zapier, it becomes very difficult to know what in the world is going on. It's good for very sequential steps. I find it's very difficult for very complicated branching. So Flow and Make and these other tools are better for more complicated no-code workflows. Ooh, it's 10:20. Went a little bit long today. Okay, good. So Dustin Puryear, founder, Giant Rocketship. We really just make it easy for you to schedule, assign, dispatch, escalate, total lifecycle management of your tickets. If you have any questions, a lot of these, in fact, the one I just went over today, they come to me via email. Somebody says, oh, I watched your show the other week, and how do you do A, B, or C? I love those kind of questions because it's very real type questions I can answer for everybody. I will post this on the website if you want to watch it again. And my email address, Dustin@giantrocketship.com. Thank you, and have a good day.